Yeah, just based on what I'm seeing now, unfortunately, the governor and the mayor are very unserious individuals. They are dangerous, and the type of rhetoric and the type of words that they're using today are only incentivizing and making the situation on the ground there in Minneapolis worse. They continue to demonize ICE. They continue to call for ICE to leave the city. They know that that will never happen. They know that the president is not going to do that, nor should he do that. And so to continue to do that for the last 2 weeks is just it's irresponsible behavior on top of not allowing law enforcement, local law enforcement, whether that's the Minneapolis Police Department or the state police, to go into Minneapolis, surge their resources, and help ICE do their job. If they did that, you would see the situation start to get lower temperature as well. And so in DHS over a period of time, right, DHS would be able to withdraw some of their resources there because state and locals have surged in. So if the mayor and the governor are truly serious about wanting DHS out, they need to surge their local law enforcement in. You see pictures on your screen right now where it's hard to see if there's any local police there at all. And that's a problem. So the governor and the mayor, you run this city, and they need to become serious voices instead of just shouting into the wind, ICE must leave the city. They're not any better than the protesters out there throwing rocks at police right now.
So, I mean, this is a situation, you mentioned it, where you do need immediately a large, visible police presence.
Yes.
To, put down or prevent something from happening. So the narrative that they seem to be building is that this was Border Patrol agents. They are untrained, and this would never have happened if Border Patrol agents who are untrained were not involved in this. So let me ask you flat out. Yeah. Border Patrol agents, they're in Minneapolis. This is, an urban area. Are they trained in this type of situation, in this type of area, to make these kind of apprehensions?
Yes, absolutely. They are trained on a variety of different tactics. They go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. They have their own academy in New Mexico. They get recurrent training. They get specialized training. They do all sorts of law enforcement activities along the border, at ports of entry, apprehending individuals, de-escalating situations. They have all the training that they need. That being said, this is not their primary mission. Their primary mission, if you're ICE, is to obviously remove individuals, criminal illegal aliens from the streets, and if you're Border Patrol, is to do that mission along the border. But when local law enforcement won't do it, they have to surge in. That's why in Minneapolis right now, you have probably 3,000 DHS assets there, right? Are all 3,000 doing immigration enforcement operations? Absolutely not. Probably only a handful are, but the others are there to protect those officers. The others are the ones that you see in the street there that are deploying those pepper balls as they are getting rocks and ice thrown at them. That should be the job of local police. But they refuse to do that because they continue to play politics with public safety. The mayor has the ability to de-escalate this very, very quickly. But again, he's looking for a microphone and asking President Trump to remove ICE, which will only inflame the situation.
So the sanctuary policies of Minneapolis, of the state of Minnesota, and other places means, in effect, local law enforcement versus means on the other side of, not helping, against, in this case, federal law enforcement. And I hear this stupid story all the time, the narrative that ICE or Border Patrol are not law enforcement. The E in ICE means enforcement. Right now, you got Hennepin County, Ramsey County, state police, potentially the National Guard, obviously Minnesota PD. In a normal situation, if things were normal these days, how would ICE and Border Patrol work directly with the local and state on this?
Yeah, well, first it would start with Minneapolis Police Department and the state police honoring ICE detainers. So If there's an individual that they book in their jails that is an illegal alien and has committed an additional crime there in Minneapolis or anywhere else, ICE gets an immediate notification and they lodge a detainer. Basically, they're asking the Minnesota police, please don't release this individual on bail. We will come by and pick this individual up in your jail. So it's a very secure facility. You're not out in the neighborhood. You're not doing, a big enforcement operation. You're going into the jail. That's how it operates in 85 to 90% of other jurisdictions. Minneapolis won't do that. They say, well, no, we don't cooperate with you, so we're not going to allow you to come into our jails. Instead, we're going to release this individual back into our community. So now ICE has to go into the streets. They have to do an enforcement action against that target, which obviously requires more and more law enforcement. The folks, when they go into a house or when they make a traffic stop, all the other assets that they need around them to protect them from angry individuals, that should be local police doing that, right? They do crowd control. They do riots. The local individuals there in Minneapolis know their police cars, know their uniforms, right? There's some assurance there. But when they don't do that, ICE has to do that. And they don't know ICE. They've never seen them before, so they get curious and tensions start to raise. And so there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you don't have local law enforcement participating with ICE. And it's as you indicated, it's a sanctuary city, and this is the path that they have chosen. And every day that they make these decisions, they are putting their residents in danger.
So we're going to show video in a second, but let me just recap for a moment. So apparently it was 9:05 Central Time. That's in Minneapolis. You had a DHS law enforcement operation targeted towards an illegal alien wanted for violent assault. Apparently, the individual who was killed approached the Border Patrol agents and had a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Okay, so again, we need to withhold judgment on exactly what happened until we know. But apparently, that was not a good situation for a citizen who was armed to approach somebody with a badge and potentially impede their investigation. That is obviously inviting trouble. Are we rolling the video? Can we roll the video now, the new video that we have? All right, this is the new video, apparently, of the situation. So you can see the Border Patrol agents in a semicircle, and there apparently is the body of that 51-year-old man, apparently a U.S. citizen. But this is almost a law enforcement situation. This was forget the illegal alien situation that they were going after.
Right.
This is like any other situation where a police officer would be confronted with a deranged or a dangerous situation with somebody with a weapon.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, I think you've got a couple of things going on here in Minneapolis right now with the amount of agitators and others that are out there. Some are peacefully protesting, and that's fine. But I think what a lot of these folks want to do, and you can see it on camera, right? You can see that they're baiting law enforcement. They're throwing rocks at them. They're doing all sorts of things. They're putting trash cans to block the roadway. They're trying, and they want law enforcement to do something aggressive towards them so they can catch it on camera. So that's one thing. The second thing in this case is if you're in this situation and you're one of those people, the very worst thing that you can do is to approach a law enforcement officer in any manner unless they have asked you to come towards them so that they can have a conversation. You do not approach them. You do not surprise them in this type of situation. And if you are a protester and you're going down to this scene and you decide that you want to bring your weapon, your sidearm with 2 clips, I think you have a certain mentality in play there that you are looking for trouble and that you may take certain actions against a law enforcement officer. And then on top of that, when you have 4 or 5 law enforcement officers on top of you, you don't resist. You don't fight back. You don't try to grab your gun. You don't try to grab their gun. All these things are taking place, obviously, in just a matter of seconds. But this is what law enforcement has to decide, is how big of a threat is this individual? And someone that has a deadly weapon on them is a threat, no matter how old, no matter how young, no matter how much training they've had. they are a threat, not only to that officer, but to everyone around them.
Chad, let me ask you one last question. So let's let's go back in time. You're the acting DHS secretary. Today, you're the secretary. You get these reports. What do you do in this moment? Are you calling the president? Are you directing the local agency? What are you doing? What's the secretary doing now? How does this all come together?
Yeah, I think obviously it's a very busy time for the secretary. She's on the phone with the president. She's on the phone with her folks at CBP and ICE and others. She should be communicating to the mayor and the governor to say, look, if you want to bring the situation down, you need to surge Minneapolis police and state police into the situation almost immediately. And as soon as my folks get a sense that part of the situation is under control, and also cooperate when they do operations and let us into your jails. And if we get all that, my guess is that DHS can pull out very quickly hundreds of officers, right? Because they don't need to do crowd control any longer. They don't need to do all the things that local police could do. And I think that is going to lower the temperature. I don't know if the mayor or the governor is amenable to that. Obviously, that's the tricky situation, right? If they're going to dig in their heels and just keep shouting into the wind that ICE needs to go home and not enforce federal law, it's just not going to happen. So at some point, they will wise up and say, hey, we want to be part of the solution and not the problem any longer. And we need to surge law enforcement in here. I have some sense of this. In 2020, I had the same thing happen similar thing happened in Portland. And after 3 months, finally the state police were called in, and they got the scene under control, and temperatures went down and the violence went down.
Yeah, let's pray for that, because this is a snap of a finger away from becoming extraordinarily violent and out of control. So, Chad Wolf, we appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.